eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to another edition of the Volpe Bazzo Report. I'm your co-host, Dominic Volpe. With me was Andy Bazzo, my co-host, and our special guest tonight, John Curan. Once again,
president of the
Peekskill Museum.
Thank you very much.
Former city historian.
Good to be here so far.
It's a pleasure to meet you, John. I've never met John. I read his book. You've got a number of books out on the history of the area.
Yes, I do.
One of them was The City of Peekskill. I was given that for Christmas.
Yeah, the picture book?
That off the air.
Uh-huh.
That's a great book.
There's
really
Old Peekskill's destruction in the 1960s and 70s. Actually, it's being reprinted right now. And there was the Peekskill's African-American history. I did that because no one else had access to the material and it needed to be done.
The only thing your books are missing are a centerfold.
That could be true. It could
Now,
be true.
I just want to get a little homework out of the way. This is another show that is not on politics, like we kept our word. Dominic's done 2 shows back to back, which is unusual. I guess he's still drying out from the Mai Tais. And my column every week can be seen in the Yorktown News. But they'll always be on politics, okay? Unlike this show and the last show, we're giving you a month of no politics, and then we'll be back to normal. And hopefully by the time we tape again in April, we will have an update that we told you about with Dominic's run for the Cortland Council. But most important now, we have Dominic talk about, we want to talk to John about the history of Peekskill. He's got some topics. But my mother is always in the audience. And she always watches, and I introduced her to John because my mother moved here at 51, and I was born in the Peekskill Hospital on Bay Street. Now, you covered the Peekskill Hospital on Bay Street in the Peekskill book. I got a little history of the hospital.
Yeah, there's a photograph, I think 1940s and 50s. Well, I was born there as well.
When did they shut it down?
When they put the new hospital down on, it was originally Peekskill Hospital,
Right.
Where the current hospital is now.
Right now it's Hudson Valley because it's not really
Road.
in Peekskill. Because that's why they
Yeah,
call it
well, it's
Hudson
over the
Valley.
line technically in the
Yes.
Cortland. That's why they did that.
But was it because the hospital was losing money or they needed to expand that they shut it down? I've always wanted to know.
Oh, why did they move away from the old
Yeah.
place? I think it was somewhat of an antique.
Yeah, it was an outdated facility.
And, you know, when
yeah.
you're trying to get ambulances in there and things like that. Not that it didn't have a nice feel to it. It did. It was an old estate there, you know, it was added on to a couple of times.
Do you know the original estate?
Yeah, Requa, I think.
It was Requa.
I think it was.
So that was
Requa Street is right near there.
Right. So that yes, it's
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, they used to live there.
So that was. So that really was. So
Yeah.
there was a really there was a real Requa.
Yeah.
That street is named after a
By the
real
way,
person.
speaking of the old Peekskill Hospital, 2 things if I can say.
Yes.
One is that they had their own nursing program there. Did you know they used to train nurses there?
No, I did not.
And the second thing, it was totally organized by the women of Peekskill. This was totally a female operation, and they did such a good job. I read their account books. They accounted for almost every dime that came in every way and everything that was spent.
I got to tell you, I got the bill from when my mother gave birth to my older brother Joe. She was in the hospital for a week. You have to ask me, how much do you think it cost her to have her first child in the Peekskill Hospital?
Okay, go ahead and tell us.
Take a guess. How much do you think it cost?
$20, $30?
$97 for a week stay. It was a week stay. It was $97.
Wait, did you call it a week stay?
She was in the hospital for a week.
Is that right?
Really?
Yeah, she was in the hospital for a week because Joe.
Wow.
Joe was late.
Oh, that's right,
number
because
one.
they didn't believe it's like, you know, you have the baby and a day later you're on your way home. Then it was a 5-day stay. That's
Yeah,
correct. That's
so they
correct.
keep you for a whole week. I didn't know
It was
that.
$97.50 to be exact. I still have the bill. And this is just to rub it into all you people out there with medical care and Obamacare. There was a time there was affordable health care.
And who was your doctor, by the way?
Dr.
No,
who was it?
Dr.
Brillinger,
Oh,
because
Brillinger.
right,
I had Kaleo.
right, because I was the last baby Brillinger delivered before he died of brain cancer.
Yeah.
I was the last delivery he did in that hospital. Yes, he died of brain cancer shortly.
No comment on that one.
Yeah, I'm going to leave that
I
one
can
alone.
see you were ready to jump.
Well, listen, if you're going to go out, I'm the baby you want to go out with. Now, it said said that you are the president of the Peekskill Museum.
Yes, indeed.
Now, you were telling me that is a private entity.
It's chartered by New York State, the State Education Department.
But now,
And we operate with the board of directors.
now do you have a website?
Yeah, sure.
Let's get this done now.
Peekskillmuseum.org.
Now, can people contribute?
Contribute what?
Money?
Well, mostly we look for artifacts.
Oh,
I'll
now.
explain see, the library has an archive center as well, the Colin Naylor Archive Room downstairs in the Field Library. They collect the paperwork. That's what an archive is.
Right.
Now, the museum mostly collects the objects. Those are the physical
The artifacts
things
themselves.
of the past, the artifacts.
Right.
That's the main difference.
But what if people don't have enough, but they want to support the museum?
Well, it's a membership organization.
Okay, let's.
All of our expenses come from the members. It's a membership, so you
So
spend.
how can they become a member? This is what I want to do. I don't like doing this stuff at the end of the
Yeah,
show.
okay.
People may leave. Let's
Well, we're in the phone book, and we're at 124 Union Avenue. We're open every Saturday afternoon year-round, and otherwise by appointment. And so someone will be there at least on Saturday afternoons. Sure. That's really the best way to do it. Go visit, see if there's something you want to be part of.
I
then,
think being a
things
member
like
of the
that.
museum is a wonderful thing. I believe in that history is important.
And this is
Now,
what it looks like. See, we have a little flyer there.
This is our little flyer here. Now, listen, I've got an artifact I want to donate to you before you leave. It's my mother over here. Do you feed and clothe and house?
No, it's
So I
not
have to. So I have
that
to
type
take.
of.
I have to take her home with me then, huh?
We are a living museum, but not to that extent.
Okay. Oh, well, Ma, you're coming home with me, Ma.
Listen, I'm an old pit part of Peekskill Hospital. I was their
I know.
receptionist when I graduated from high school.
Yeah, you told me a little bit
Yes,
about that.
yes.
About the.
Now, the
So-
other thing you were was Peekskill historian.
I have
How
been.
long were you? How long were you the Peekskill historian?
About 18 years.
Now, and did that help you get the artifacts you needed? I mean, having.
Well, again, there are two different things. The museum is actually hosting the office of the city historian. Actually, we did the city a big favor by doing that. And the city never paid really any expense of that, such as the copy machine, the computers, the electric, and the heat.
Sure.
Time after time, I'd go over to City Hall and ask for that type of understanding, and it was never really fulfilled.
Right.
Okay, now that we got the homework out of the way,
yeah.
Dominic, when people look at the picture, the camera shot of Dominic, there's a poster next to him. I assume, now I recognize that as one of Lincoln's kids, correct?
No, that's
That's
actually
not-
young L. Frank Baum when he was here in Peekskill as a cadet at the former Peekskill Military
Oh,
Academy.
so we're going to do Oz first.
Yes.
Well, you asked a great question off camera before. Why
Why?
should we care? I mean, what is the big deal about this thing?
Was he from Peekskill?
Well, no. Well, the answer is real simple. I mean, you have kids, and most people have some contact with children. It just happens to be, according to people who know these things, one of the most popular stories in the world.
Oh, adults too. Come on, everybody still watching. They don't run that Wizard of Oz endlessly on TNT if it's not getting viewers.
So
Think
yeah,
about
I mean, it's a great film, that Judy Garland musical.
it. Yes.
And it's really very well done. Occasionally, I still watch it. I'm still
I'm
impressed. by it.
saying that people.
But even
of
more
all
than that,
ages, it appeals
when the
to.
book came out in 1900, it was an instant success. It came out at Christmas time, and it just took off. So it took this guy who was obscure his whole life. He really didn't accomplish anything. But he liked to tell stories to kids. So finally, he wrote this thing down, and it finally got published. It wasn't easy. He went through, I don't know how many publishers they said get lost.
So you mean he was an American version of Hans Christian Andersen?
Yes, indeed. Anthony, you hit that right on the head. That's exactly right. Lewis Carroll, Hans Christian Andersen, and he was recognized with an international award. By
Really?
the way, that had his name on it like that.
So historically, where is he from? Is he from this area?
Well, he's
New
from
York?
upstate New York,
Right.
outside Syracuse at Chittenango.
His upbringing,
That's where he grew up.
and then from there, how do you end up here in Peekskill?
Well, this is the point. Okay, this is one of our big historical moments. You ready? We got a little
Yes.
soundtrack here.
Drum roll.
The only schooling this kid, this person ever received in his life was at Peekskill.
Really?
Yes, and it was less than 2 years. So the point being, we don't have a lot of time. It was extremely memorable in his life. First of all, because he didn't have a good time here.
We haven't had
He wasn't suited to the military lifestyle. He was looking at it at the window one day, looking at a tree and a bird singing, and the teacher came over and grabbed him like this, shook him up. He formerly had rheumatic fever. He had a seizure, and he fell to the floor, and he passed out. Now, that might be something that could stick in your mind later.
So it's almost like a traumatic time period.
Now, how did
for
he get
him.
into the community? How did he leave? I don't want to go all the details, but there is still a pavement of yellow brick that extended out to the dock where the steamboat came in. First thing he sees when he gets off the steamboat is this pavement of yellow brick. Now, he has this traumatic event at the school. He's thinking, I want to get to hell. I want to get out of here.
You can say hell.
I want to, heck, I was going to say,
Oh, okay.
and get back home. So he writes to his father, I have to get out of here. It's no good for me. It's a lousy school. I want to go back, and so on and so on.
So now this
And
is
he thinks,
the
that's
picture.
how I get back home. And that's how the character in the story gets, eventually.
Right. So
home.
that picture of when he was at the Peekskill Academy.
That's right.
Wow.
How old is he in this picture?
He's 14.
14.
Yep.
Well, now I see you got a book here on the table, Finding Oz. I assume, obviously, you've read it.
Well, we collaborated with the author on
so
putting this all
I
together.
said this is
Myself as a
germane.
historian and also through the museum. And this is what we do. We collaborate on several, research projects that turn into books.
And so, where do you find Oz? Being
Where-
that it
where do
says
I
Finding
find Oz?
Where do we find Oz? What the purpose
mean-
of the book? Brings you
Well,
to
it's a fantasy story. And everyone is free to indulge, of course, in their own fantasies.
No, but I'm assuming we're traveling the life of the
Frank
author
Baum, the author,
in
yeah.
this book.
Yeah, well, what this author does is find that every serious event in his life that's very, emotional and so on shows up in a book in some way, and that's
Who was the Wicked Witch?
is probably his mother-in-law. That's according to the story here.
Okay,
Yeah.
hold the book up to the camera.
Oh, and we know that the wizard, by the way, was probably Thomas Edison. He was a
Correct.
wizard in his own lifetime, the Wizard of Menlo Park,
Right.
and so on and so on.
Well, I read the book. Isn't there a
there
part
with the red
where
light.
where isn't the Emerald City actually Chicago?
Yeah.
Yes, and there's also where Edison has a big.
Yep.
I believe they have a big it was a huge building that was
Yes,
one of the
that's right, the
concessions
electricity
or whatever,
building.
the electricity building,
Yeah.
and I think that's where he
Very
gets
good.
that whole idea with
right.
with the wizard in the actual movie.
yeah.
You know, when he's in that scene with
Yeah,
the fire.
Edison
and the
had a
smoke.
tower of light bulbs. There
Right.
was thousands of light bulbs. Imagine this. People had never seen electricity before.
They said it lit up the sky as all the farmers
Yeah.
were coming into Chicago.
And furthermore, Baum saw Edison in life on the stage. So there you go. It shows up in a book.
Right.
1905, let me throw in one more thing.
Go ahead, Rich.
The
This is
alumni
This is your
magazine
show. I'm fascinated.
of the
man.
old academy
I love this stuff.
features Baum prominently with a photograph saying he's furthermore going to donate some of his books to the Academy Library. So he didn't forget about Peekskill. So there are connections, and that's sort of the
Did he donate the books?
I don't know the answer to that because I'm not part of the Academy.
Oh.
Some people say he did, and some people say, where are they then if he did?
What are
But,
the Tin Man, the Lion, and the Scarecrow? What do they represent?
Well, you know these things. I mean, they're all symbolic. You know,
Correct.
we're all missing something in our
Yeah,
lives.
but you can't assume the audience knows what we know. That's why. The
And you know,
question's
some
relevant.
people don't have enough heart. Some people aren't smart enough. And so, what's the other one?
Right.
The Cowardly Lion.
Yeah, and some people don't have enough courage. So he's very clever in putting those things into the story. And I think that's one of the reasons it's so enduring.
The word that actually what I'd heard one time was that the Scarecrow represent the agricultural. Don't forget, it's a
It could be.
farming.
It could
The Tin Man was the industry that was about to.
And the
could-
Cowardly
that-
Lion was your regular politician.
It could be all those things. Yeah, and that's why it's a great story.
Yes, yes, yes. But I love the symbolism that's attached to everyone, all the books that are subscripts to Oz and how they try to come up with their own variation
Yeah, sure.
of what it is.
Well, that means it's a great story.
correct. It
You know, you can read whatever you like into it. By the way, I read the book and I recommend reading the book.
Yes,
It's a children's
it's
story, but it
excellent.
reads very well.
Yes.
The language is clear. It's good.
That's a lost art, by the way, reading, reading
Well,
classics and all that. Now people read People magazine.
It may be to some people. I'm a big reader
a
myself.
little confused. There was a part where when I was reading either this or something else where was there just one book or were there something like 4 or 5 like books that were kind
Yeah,
of
well,
precursors to
yeah.
Oz or then after Oz?
That's a great question, Dominic. When the book came out, it was a big success. He made several $1,000s. To make more money, he sold the copyright to one of the publishers. So he lost the rights to his own story. So that's why he had to keep writing a couple of different versions.
Now, I'm looking over on the side here, so Dominic, switch the pictures a minute, because I'm looking at the yellow brick road here.
Oh, this one here.
I'm looking at the yellow brick road. Is that really a copy of the yellow brick road?
Yeah, this shows you where it is. I know it's kind of hard to pick up, through
Dominic,
video.
if you put it next to you, I think
But
that's
that was an original roadway, a dedicated road called West Street that runs from Water Street, ran all the way out to the dock, and that's what those other graphics on the map
Where
is
would
about.
they find West Street now, roughly? I mean, it's not
Well,
there, but where
right behind the Standard House, down by the
Yes.
train station.
Oh, so there would have been a street back there.
Well, this is still a portion of it right there.
Right.
There's only about 50 feet left.
Sure, here's the parking lot that a lot of the
Yeah.
commuters use.
On Water Street,
Yes,
Yes.
So you go by it all the time, but you really have to walk over and take a look at it.
I have to know. I mean, people I got a feeling a lot of our viewers that take the train and they walk over to the
Yeah.
parking lots on Water Street are going to make a little
Yeah,
detour
this is good
now.
then. Yeah, it's been there since the 1830s, by the way.
John, growing up in Peekskill, this was actually very popular throughout all the city of Peekskill, was that
Well-
yellowy, golden type of brick
Well,
that you saw throughout most
except
of the
that that
city.
was put in for the trolley later, about 1899, 1900. And
Right.
those are bigger pavers.
Right.
This is old Dutch brick, which is actually smaller than common brick. They're all red brick in all the old buildings.
Right.
This is even much older brick than that.
Right.
This is
So they
And,
really feel that that's how this, like you said,
Well,
it's all his life.
We went through it, through several. The author explained the whole thing, and he researched every place where Frank Baum was, and it turns out that nobody else claims this. Peekskill is the only place in the country that so far claims that they have any connection to Frank Baum's Yellow Brick Road.
Well, it's funny because Peekskill wants to claim with the Underground Railroad, rightly so. I guess Baum compares in comparison to free and captured people.
Well, Peekskill was part of the Underground Railroad.
I said.
To a very small extent, though.
I know, but
Yeah.
I think when you boast that you were part of a chain that freed enslaved people, Baum kind of just pales in comparison to that and to Lincoln visiting.
Well, I don't know about that.
I mean, the fact that the Wizard of Oz is a timeless movie, and like I said, is shown endlessly.
Yeah, well, maybe the Underground Railroad, frees people, and the Oz story makes people feel good. So they're equal in terms of what they do.
Now, before we go into Lincoln, I want to go into these books that, like I said, I got the History of Peekskill book that you did. Just give now you didn't just concentrate on Peekskill in some of those books.
Mostly I did, yeah.
So what are the books concentrating on Peekskill? So when people go to the Barnes and Noble, they can look for the ones so they know that it was actually a Peekskill person that knew what they were talking about. What are the titles that they can look for? Because I know they're at the Barnes and Noble.
The attack of Peekskill by the British in 1877. And people should know that Peekskill, per se, was the Continental Army headquarters for the Hudson Valley. 1776, early part of the Revolution, through 1778.
So the Brom House.
The Burtzel House. Yes, that's where Washington stayed. That
Correct.
was his headquarters.
When Peekskill was
And this is another point. The second command post for the Continental Army in the Hudson Valley was West Point. Now, West Point gets all the attention. Peekskill gets no attention. The reason it wasn't because it wasn't important. It actually was extremely important.
Right.
But because the British came and they knocked it out 3 times. They destroyed as much as they could. They burned the houses and the buildings and burned everything
we've
out the
been
wards.
fortunate enough to have 2 of our greatest presidents, 2 of the 3 greatest. I don't know if Roosevelt ever came here, but we've had 2 of the 3 greatest
He
presidents.
dedicated the armory when he was governor. Roosevelt,
Okay, so we've
FDR.
had 3 of our greatest presidents actually come into Peekskill.
Yeah, sure.
The ones that are listed, the top 3 greatest
Yeah, okay.
presidents. Why is it only Lincoln we hear about? Why not Washington?
That's a really
All
great
you have is a
question.
little
I-
rock with rocks and
I agree
And
with
I didn't
you.
even know. I didn't even know Roosevelt was here.
I wish there was a Washington Society. I mean, it was truly deserved such a thing. Many of the soldiers buried out in the Van Cortlandt Cemetery, fought in the Revolution around here. Happened right here, this type of thing.
Well, I'm just saying, here's
Whereas the Civil War didn't happen.
I mean, you could.
That's a good point.
There's a number of our surrounding towns that never had a president set foot on their thing.
Probably.
We had the top three greatest,
Right.
and all Lincoln, and I love
Well,
Lincoln.
that's why Peekskill has a great history.
Yes.
We contacted all these big
When you
things
had those armies at
happening
that
nationally.
time happening locally, who were the benefactors? In other words, what I understand, like Pierre Van Cortlandt was a big benefactor at that time as far as supplying.
Well, he was the head of a regiment.
Right. Oh,
he
he
was the
was.
head of the 3rd Westchester
Right.
Militias.
Because
Very
you had
important.
the Van Cortlandt
His
House.
son was a colonel, had his own, the 2nd Continental Line Regiment that
Right.
fought here at Peekskill against the British.
But wasn't he at that time a huge holder of estate?
Well, he was a landowner, but he was also an American patriot.
Right, no, understood.
So he
understood.
sacrificed
well,
a lot of
Well, what I mean is, wasn't he able to? Didn't he help fund part of the war, or did the
Yes,
money
he
come
did.
from? Yes, that's
he
the,
did, and he
yes.
also gave his family and to the cause.
When they said
And-
we
and so
pledge
on and
our
so
our lives, our wealth, our sacred honor, they took that as a literal.
Well, it was a life or death situation. That was
Now, that's I got to take. People ask me all the time, and I know the answer, and I'm going to hopefully know. Gallows Hill. Why the name? Was there
Well,
really a
because
gallows?
yes, indeed there was.
That, Pete, I want you to do this because that's one of the
Okay.
biggest questions people ask me all the time. Why Gallows Hill? Because you have a lot of
Why
people.
Gallows Hill? Because Continental Village was created by the Continental Army.
This is-
In command there was General Israel Putnam, who was one of the leaders of the whole, American forces at that time. They found this guy, and he was a Tory. He was working for the other side. He was trying to recruit or get information from the American side. Therefore, he was a spy in disguise, and he was accused of being such a traitor, and he was hung up there on Gallows Hill.
There is a
Continental
plaque
Village.
on Gallows
Yes, there
Hill
is.
right by Kingston Road that said they used that for the traitors of the Revolution and the Civil War, correct?
No, there's only one that I know from the Revolution that was hung there, none from the Civil War.
Oh, because the plaque said Civil War.
I forget his name offhand.
But,
but,
the Gallows Hill is aptly named. That's where they
Yes,
hung
it
the
is.
traitor.
Yes. Well, they built the gallows for this one event. Yeah.
And they named a county after a traitor? What happened? Was he
Oh,
exonerated?
no, that was Israel
after?
Putnam. He was the general, the American general in charge. So in honor of General
Okay.
Putnam, they named Putnam County.
Okay.
And he was a true patriot as well.
Again,
And, the revolutionary story is something I'd love to get into. Anyway, that's what the book is about. The attack of Peekskill by the British. I put all
I'm
that
not
information
asking you
in.
not to get into it. This is a
Well,
Dominic said
because-
this is a freewheeling thing.
Well-
I mean, Lincoln. No offense, Lincoln's movies out there. We know he dies,
Okay.
but the Revolution, I think, is an unsung thing. And
Why the Lincoln thing? Why does Peekskill bother so much?
yes, please.
You might want to ask.
I did ask.
Is because
You didn't let us answer.
because he had just been elected that previous November. Nobody knew who he was. He got less than 50% of the vote.
42.
Yes, very good. There was no newspaper, they didn't know no pictures, no TV. Nobody even
Oh,
knew what
so
he looked
he
like.
used that in a sense in order to actually kind of just
to
meet the
place to
people and
place,
say,
just so they could actually see who he was, because you couldn't
kidding.
hear in those days. There's no amplification.
No.
So because William Nelson had served together in the Congress with him, local lawyer, and asked him to stay here.
Nelson of Nelson Avenue.
Yeah, that's right. And so he does, and he stops, and it's not a question of how, 1,500 local people turned out just to see Lincoln during those couple of minutes. Now imagine getting that many people to even for anybody.
right.
Chauncey
Like
Depew,
that.
did he know Lincoln?
Oh, yes, he did. Yes, he did. They
That's a Depew Park. in Depew
cooperated
Street.
together
right.
on several things. So that was it. That trip, by the way, is a separate book written about it. When he hit New York City, 250,000 people turned out altogether on this trip. It was, it was a phenomenon.
Was it?
And
Was
so
it?
Peekskill again is part of this national
No, he
thing.
was under
That's
heavy-
why we continue to celebrate it.
He was under heavy security by the Pinkerton, right?
Oh,
Because of the
Anthony, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes.
Because that's really a great question. Because the war had already basically it didn't start, but the South was breaking away. The day before Lincoln stops here in Peekskill, the president of the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis, is elected. Bada boom. They know bad things are happening. Lincoln had no security per se on this trip. He hired Alan Pinkerton, who was a detective. They found there was threat of trouble and assassination on that trip. So again, it adds more drama to that as well.
Well, yeah,
As you know, Lincoln is finally assassinated, and the funeral train comes back.
How far,
and stops at
to
Peekskill
what
also.
length? Was it just a Washington to New York, or up to Maine, New Hampshire? In other words, how far was that train trip that
Well,
he
he
took?
starts at Springfield, Illinois. That's his home.
Okay.
And he stops at all the places, through Ohio and Indiana, Illinois, all those states, I guess.
Right.
Comes into York, big thing, Syracuse, Rochester, big thing in Albany. Then he comes down to Hudson, and that's what we're part of here. This is his only physical appearance in
So it's
Westchester
central
County.
United States to the
And then
northeast.
he's going to Washington, let me slow down. He's going to Washington, D.C. for the inauguration,
Right.
which in those days took place in March. And that's what that trip was about.
Gotcha.
Now,
So but it's basically central United States to the northeast, pretty much. He doesn't go to Florida. He's
No,
not going
this
to
trip
California.
is just go to Washington, D.C.
Right.
And that was the train trip.
How long was the trip? Week, 2 weeks, 3
About
weeks?
11 days.
11 days.
we have
His family's on there with him, too.
Right,
We have a short time left. I was given the signal by our voice in God over there. And so we had 2 books now. What's the third book with Peekskill you're involved with?
I think, we have the Arcadia publication called Images of America.
Okay.
Old archival photographs. I mentioned the African American history. The
That you meant
attack of
okay? That's the
Peekskill.
other one, the American African.
Yeah.
That deals with Peekskill too, right?
Yeah, it all is Peekskill.
Okay, now just a quick synopsis on that book because we did the war. We've done
Yeah, well-
quick synopsis on that. Then we'll close out.
It was a
with this.
learning process for me. I didn't know really much at all about that whole story. And I began looking in the library, looking at the museum, some of the material that showed up. First of all, there was slavery in Peekskill as well as in Cortland. We knew about Cortland on the estate out there. And anyway, what I tracked was all these outstanding individuals that came out of Peekskill. And that's a lot of what the book is about.
Well, because I know that
Haywood Burns.
I know Society Hill is the Beecher estate.
Yes, that's right.
That was a stop on the Underground Railroad. You also have a house on Main Street.
well,
Right by
yes.
North James, that was a stop on the Underground Railroad. But the Beechers, it's an interesting family I found.
Yeah, they were.
They were slaveholders before they became abolitionists because you still have the old slave quarters, which is an apartment
Well,
house.
no, not the Beechers. No, the Beechers came out of Connecticut, and they were fundamentalist religious people. They never.
But I could have sworn that.
Well, there was a slave house on Main Street, but we don't know really who was connected.
no, but I thought one of the houses in Society Hill, I was told was.
Yes, I know the Beecher house is still there.
Yes.
He was an extreme anti-slavery advocate, and he did amazing things during the war and
Sure, the
cooperated with
writings and
Lincoln
all
and
that,
so on.
yes.
It's another Peekskill thing. A national figure, here he is in Peekskill.
Sure.
So that's why the Peekskill story is so interesting, and you can all these different topics.
In fact, your Peekskill book has a picture of him looking out the window of his.
Yeah, that's
the
a
house.
very good picture. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, he had a little farm up there as well.
Sure.
Do you get tired of this? Or
No,
does it-
not really,
it's like a cat with a ball of thread.
because we always learn new old things.
So I'm just saying, a cat with
Yeah.
a ball of thread, you pull on one
Sort of
string,
like that. It's a good analogy.
and something else comes
It's
out.
almost like driving a cab. Look at all the different people you
You
meet.
don't know. You don't
And
know.
you learn different things every day.
You do. And so I assume you're going to continue. You got any more books in the wings that you want to get? You got coming out? You working on anything right now?
Well, I was let go by the city recently due to their budget problems. So I'm thinking of new
Which I still think is an outrage.
Well,
I
whatever.
don't like this.
new projects and new ventures. So let's put it that way.
All right. Well, look, we're ready to wrap up here. John, as usual, you've been
All
a
right.
great guest. We'll bring you
Yeah,
back on
Yes,
again soon.
you will be back on because I told you I majored in history. I think
Oh, yeah.
it's, my history teacher was so old her fingernails were wrinkled.
Okay.
She became the Wicked Witch of
You
the
have to
West.
think about that.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. But I'm glad you. I hope you will come back. I hope you had a good time because this is the
No,
first time
I enjoyed it.
we
It was
met.
good. I like the format. I like the free flow thing.
Yes, yes.
And when you come back, I want you to promise that we're going to concentrate on the revolution.
Oh, great.
I want to do this because
Last word. Who was Dorothy?
Dorothy was an infant in Baum's family who died when she was very young. Her name was Dorothy Gage. He changed the name to Dorothy Gale and brought her back to life in the book,
In the book.
in the story as well.
Same story. Good.
and now she's morphed into many female impersonators playing her in various clubs in New York.
Well, I'm
City.
not going to get into that.
Thank you once again. Have a good night, everyone.
Anyway, have a good night. These are what I say. What say you, John?